welcome to the program. I'm Shin Se-min in for Lee Ji-yoon. Here are the stories we're following today on Business Daily. Korea's production across all sectors jumps 1% in January, but domestic spending stays on a downward trend. Exports surged 20% in February, continuing a positive streak for 4 straight months. Will this trend continue, and what might be some of the challenges? More positive economic news for Korea today, this time in terms of production across all industries. But things are less bright in terms of domestic demand. Lee Ji-young has more.
Korea's output across all sectors went up 1% in January from the month before, posting the third straight month of increase. Data by Statistics Korea on Thursday shows that the figure was largely driven by a sharp uptick in the production of electronic components, with semiconductors rising nearly 9%. Industrial production in the mining and manufacturing sector went up 3.3% in January from the month before, continuing an upward streak that started in November. The statistics agency linked the gains to the steady rise in exports as the country's manufacturing sector takes up a large portion of its outbound shipments. Korea's exports grew at their fastest pace in 5 years in February, jumping over 20% from the year before on the back of strong demand for Korean chips, flat panels, and petrochemical products. However, with more economies around the world bracing for protectionist trade policies, there are lingering concerns over how long the favorable export figures will last. Meanwhile, in another worrying sign for Korea, the country saw less positive data on the demand side. Retail sales fell 2.2% in January from the month before, marking the first time since the global financial crisis that the figure has dropped for 3 months in a row. The agency says the drop in domestic demand comes as the effects of the government's efforts to boost consumption fade. The government's Korea Sale Festa event, which ran from late September to the end of October, helped produce a 5% on-month increase in retail sales in October, but only in that month. Lee Ji-young, Business Daily.
And while outbound output rose for 3 straight months thanks to robust exports, uncertainties still remain, especially on the foreign exchange front, which could put a dent in the current growth pace of outbound shipments. Hwang Ji-hye takes a look at what Korea should be expecting and preparing for to keep its biggest growth engine, exports, ticking along at a healthy pace.
Foreign exchange markets have been tinged with uncertainty since Donald Trump was sworn in as U.S. president in mid-January. Ever since hitting the campaign trail, Trump has stated over and over that he's the man to fix Washington's massive trade imbalances with countries like China and Japan. His insistence and determination to keep his campaign promises has heightened speculation that those countries might be labeled currency manipulators in the U.S. Treasury Department's April report.
You look at what China's doing, you look at what Japan has done over the years. They play the money market, they play the devaluation market, and we sit there like a bunch of dummies.
Although not directly mentioned by name, South Korea is also keeping close tabs on the possibility of Seoul being listed within the report. While the chance of that happening is considered low, experts say Korea could feel the indirect effects of China being listed as a currency manipulator by the U.S.
The trade friction between the United States and China could put a dent in Korea's exports to China, mostly intermediary goods.
Making matters worse, experts say the uncertainty on foreign exchange markets looks like it's here to stay.
2 major factors that will decide the value of the dollar going forward are an anticipated rate hike by the Federal Reserve and the Trump administration's trade protectionist measures. The 2 factors have opposing effects on the value of the greenback, so only the market knows which force is stronger.
And that's why Korea's economic policymakers are pushing measures aimed at boosting domestic consumption, despite upbeat economic data out of the U.S. and some European countries, key markets for Korea. a country heavily dependent on exports for growth.
So in the long run, experts say it's crucial for Korea to overhaul its export strategy to increase shipments of high-value added products by focusing on industries like information and communications technology while looking for new markets in areas like Southeast Asia and South America. Hwang Ji-ae, Business Daily. The U.S. Commerce Department has slapped Korean producers with higher anti-dumping duties on phosphor copper in its final determination issued early this week. Korean companies may face up to 8.4% in anti-dumping tariffs on its products, which are often used as deoxidants and alloying agents. The ruling is the first final anti-dumping duty issued under the new Trump administration's Commerce Department on Korean goods, and is more than double the 3.8% handed down in a preliminary decision last year. The ultimate decision now lies with the U.S. International Trade Commission, which is expected to rule on the case in April. Let's get a quick check now on how the markets fared here in Seoul today. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi was up 0.5%, finishing the day at 2,102.65, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq fell by 0.5%. The Korean won weakened against the greenback, ending at 1,141.61. It was another record-setting day on Wall Street overnight for all three major indices. In particular, the Dow gained more than 300 points to shoot past the 21,000 mark for the first time in its history. Over in Spain, where the Mobile World Congress is well underway, among the tens of thousands of participants are a number of Korean companies, both big and small. Our Kim Min-ji in Barcelona shows us what they have to offer.
The tech-savvy and sports enthusiasts among you may want to get your hands on tickets for next year's Winter Olympics as soon as possible.
When the Winter Olympics come to Pyeongchang, Korea next year, KT will aim to provide a whole new viewer experience made possible through an ultra-fast 5G network.
The Korean telecommunications giant will provide spectators with 360-degree views and sync and omni views to give fans that feeling of being right in the thick of the action. It requires the lightning-fast speed of 5G networks, which have been the talk of the town at this year's Mobile World Congress.
The properties of 5G are ultra-fast speed, fewer delays, and fast connection. Media contents that feel like reality require huge amounts of data, but such things will be available thanks to this network.
But it's not just the big names that come to the MWC. It's also an arena for startups and small and mid-sized companies to make their mark on the global stage. This company, for one, is aiming to expand its presence in the wearable medical market through a product for people with hearing impairments. Do away with the conventional hearing aid, put on this neckband, and it will keep you out of harm's way.
It can recognize where the sounds come from, and it can notify you the direction of the sounds by vibrating.
More and more people are focused on personal health these days. Water is one of the core elements for that. But are you getting enough? This bottle tells you whether you are drinking enough water.
People didn't know how much water they should have drink and how much amount water they drink. So our application and smart bottle tells you I drink 8% of amount of day. So it's very easy to keep hydrated.
The Internet of Things can also be incorporated into the beauty market. This startup has developed a tool that can measure the amount of oil and moisture on your face and give you the ideal solution for your skin.
It gives you treatment right away, like for the meat. And every day we suggest 3 missions for kinds of massaging and cleansing.
There are also robots that allow everything from home monitoring to interactive communication, and virtual reality games that give you a more sensational gaming experience. All this highlights the potential of Korean companies and gives us a glimpse of what to expect in the coming years. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily, Barcelona.
Korea has now seen 4 straight months of on-year gains on the export front, introducing cautious signs of optimism. But will this be a lasting trend? Take a look.
It's been a long struggle with plunging exports. Korea's outbound shipments, considered the country's key economic driver, fell below $500 billion last year, the first since 2010. Exports had been on a slide, logging the first consecutive 2-year drop in 58 years in 2016. But recent figures suggest a change of course. Just last month, exports jumped 20.2% on year, reaching $43.2 billion, rising at the fastest pace in 5 years. The upward trend has continued since November, pushing figures into double-digit growth for the first 2 months of this year. But in the face of growing trade protectionist sentiment and the ruffling of feathers with Korea's largest trading partner, China, exactly how long this growth will last remains to be seen.
For more on this, we have Professor Kim Se-wan from Ewha Women's University joining us in the studio. Good to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here.
As we just saw in the report, some refreshing news on the trade front. Exports were in dire conditions, in need of a great boost. What drove up the export figures that we've seen in the past couple of months, especially the double-digit growth this year?
First of all, export increase is a long-awaited news in Korea. The huge increase in exports was mostly driven by export increases in semiconductors and petroleum products and chemical products. And particularly, the price increases in these products, not the quantity, have led export increases. For example, semiconductors price increases over 70% in a year, and petroleum products price also increased over 70%.
A rise in exports has given the country manufacturing sectors to also a lift. Just last month, we saw the industry's sentiment index advancing to its highest in 22 months.
Right. So, of course, it has a positive impact on manufacturing side. Bank of Korea's business survey index, which is the barometer of manufacturers' psychology, was 76 in the last month. And that was, as you said, one of the highest level in the last 2 years. However, it should be pointed out that 76 is still under 100. So we interpret that when business survey index is below 100, most of the manufacturer sees the future in a negative way.
Now, the 2 consecutive year drop in exports pushed Korea's positions to world's number 8,
right.
Down 2 notches from its previous 6. Now, that's according to the World Trade Organization. But how big of a rebound does Korea need to regain its place?
Well, it is hard to tell as of now, but my guess is if we keep up with the pace of the export increase, sooner or later, maybe by the end of this year, we will recover the previous position. One of the most important reasons why Korean export has been decreasing was a global economic crisis after 2008. Global trade has been decreased over 20% after that. And as of last year actually, Hong Kong and France are 1 and 2 steps ahead of us in terms of the size of the export. But the difference is not that large, about $20 billion, or as large as a half of 1 month's export.
Now, on the trade front, Korea's trade ministry is optimistic that such boost will stay around for a couple months. What's your take? And if you were to break it down by sectors, which sector do you think will do better?
Well, personally, I believe that the Korean export continue to grow by the end of this year. Broadly speaking, the global economy is slowly recovering, starting with the United States. And in more specific, the chip industry or semiconductor industry is still booming. And there is a serious shortages of the chips by the end of 1 or 2 years more. And also, the oil price is slowly increasing by the end of the year. That's the 2 major reasons for increasing export from Korea.
Something we can be cautious about, though, like you just mentioned, the export growth was heavily reliant on expansion of both that of China and the U.S. So in other words, we're dependent on the performance there.
Right. As we know, we have a serious trading problem with largest and second largest trading partners, China and United States. China covers about 26% of our export, and U.S. covers another 14% of our export. But the serious problem with these countries, like even though Chinese government is officially denying, they are imposing more restrictions on Korea's export to China. That's the first problem. And secondly, U.S. is about to release their currency manipulating country list. And we know that Korea is one of the candidates. So we have to cautiously and sensibly react and respond to these threats from out of the country.
Professor, thank you for your insight today.
Thank you very much.
That does it for us on this Thursday. We'll be back with more of today's business stories tomorrow. Thank you for watching.